Good morning, grade 3. I welcome you to today's social studies lesson. And this week we will read chapter 5 from unit 3, Our History Through Time and Place. And unit 3 is all about communities over time. So the learning objective of today's lesson is to recognize how people changed their communities. Great, so let's start reading lesson 2 in chapter 5. And the title of this lesson is People Bring Changes. Now, before you begin reading, I want you to ask yourself this question. So, what to know? How have people changed their communities? And don't worry about the vocabulary, we're going to come across all these words as we read the lesson. So, let's begin reading. Focus on the picture that's down below in this page. What do you see? You can see that there are some labels and titles in this picture. That's a hotel right there in the corner, dry goods in the middle, passengers walking on the side, and businesses. And it looks like an old community, right? Great, so let's begin reading. People change communities with their actions and inventions. Inventions are things that are made for the first time. New ideas also help communities grow and change. So in this paragraph, we've learned that people bring about changes in a community, and inventions are things that are made for the first time. I want you to build this habit that when you're reading and as you go through the text, for each paragraph or page, summarize the information in your own words. That way you're going to reach the main idea and will process the information that's being displayed better. Okay, great. So let's read the next paragraph. And there is a title right there, Building Outward. Communities grow as people move to them. New streets and roads are built. New businesses open and new buildings go up near the edges of communities. Often, a town's borders move outward to include the new areas. On this page, we're going to see how people have improved transportation in their community. So let's begin reading. But before we begin reading, let's focus on this picture. I want you to analyze this picture. What do you see? You can see that that's a train. That's the railroad right here. And I see people in old-fashioned clothes. So this is probably a picture from a community that existed a long time ago. And that's the train station, right? Perfect. And this person right here is wearing boots, high boots, and holding a shovel. I think that's what they used to use when they would put coal into the engine of a train, and the coal used to burn, producing generating energy that basically ran the train in the right direction towards the destination. But now this has changed, right? So let's start reading. Improving transportation. As towns grow, people build roads to connect their communities. Early roads were rough. Most people traveled on horseback or by horse and wagon. Travel was slow. People wanted better and faster ways to travel. They built canals to connect rivers. We've learned about it in our previous lesson about the Panama Canal, right? Later, they built railroads. In Britain, George Stephenson developed a train engine that could run on a track. Many people call Stephenson the father of the railways. And that's a picture of George Stephenson right here in the corner. Railroads brought change to communities. Businesses used railroads to move goods to markets. New businesses opened, and the older communities located along tracks grew. New communities also grew along the tracks. All of these communities were now connected because it was easy to travel between them by train. And this is how we know that the urban areas expanded and developed and reached outward, right? Great, so this page was all about improvement in transportation, how people like George Stephenson have brought about improved transportation, thereby benefiting the community. Alright, now on this page we're going to look at how people brought about changes in their communities by building taller buildings, modernizing their community. So on the first half of the page there's a graph. Let's have a closer look. Some of the world's tallest buildings. That's the title. Over here you can see the height that's measured and presented here in feet, and these are the titles of the buildings. And there's a question right here below the graph that asks, which is taller, the Sears Tower or the Eiffel Tower? And obviously the answer is the Sears Tower, the one that's second last to the last one, found in Chicago. Great. So let's move on to the last half of this page, where we're going to read about building upward. Let's begin reading. In communities that were growing, people needed more places to live and work. In 1885, an engineer named William Jenney changed the way buildings were made. Engineers, now that's your vocabulary, engineers design ways to build and make things. Jenney's design used steel and iron for a 10-story building in Chicago, Illinois. It was the first metal frame skyscraper, or very tall building. So the very tall building, the first ever tall building that had a metal frame, was this Flatron building right here that you see in New York City. Most people did not want to walk up the many flights of stairs tall buildings needed. In the late 1800s, Elisha Otis designed the first elevator that could safely carry people. Elevators made it possible for people to build taller skyscrapers. So, cause and effect. You need to ask yourself, a reading check, how did elevators help people build taller buildings? Well, the answer is, now it was easier for people who did not want to walk up all those flights of stairs, and these elevators would just carry them safely on the upper higher floors of the building. Great. Let's move on to what we're going to do today. So please don't forget to answer in the discussion, what did you learn in today's lesson? Don't forget to leave a comment in the e-discussion, and if you have any queries, do not forget to post a question. Best of luck, grade 3.